Should the Seattle Seahawks make a big splash trade at the edge rusher position? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on this Monday. And today we're going to be talking about something that could happen. One of the only things that can happen in the world of professional football during this time of the year, late June through July. There's really not a lot that goes on during this time, but this is one of the things that can: trades. And the NFL doesn't have as many trades as the other sports leagues, I would say, with the exception of maybe the draft and the time immediately before the draft. So the odds of there being a trade are not super high, and the odds of it being a big trade are even lower. And when the NFL does have a big trade, statistically, it's not likely to involve your favorite team because there are 32 teams, and trades involve 2 teams. But I think this is worth talking about, especially in light of some of the things that have been said recently by some people. And I do believe there is some genuine, legitimate merit to this conversation. Should the Seahawks make a big trade for a stud, specifically a stud edge rusher, because it's edge rushers that are available right now. So if you want to make a big splash trade and bring in a marquee player, you're probably talking about an edge rusher. And in the case of this Seahawks team, I think that if they were going to do something like this, edge rusher would make a good deal of sense. Please like this video if you haven't already. Click the thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to support the channel. Now, there are a few different guys we can talk about here, and we'll get to it. We'll get to it. But we're going to start with Trey Hendrickson. This is where the fire comes in right now. Trey Hendrickson, there's a little bit of stuff going on here. We have an NFL analyst, according to Field Goals here, suggesting the Seahawks should try to trade for Trey Hendrickson. It's Daniel Jeremiah, by the way. And you also had this. Now, this NFL Rumors thing, NFL Rumors is not a very valid source. They say a lot of things, and a lot of the things that they say will happen do not happen. They just kind of throw stuff out there, so I'm not going to suggest to anybody that they read too much into this. What I will say is that it would make some sense for the Seahawks to have interest in Trey Hendrickson. Now, for those of you who are maybe unfamiliar with the situation, Trey Hendrickson has been a very, very good player on the Bengals defense for the last 4 years, and he wants a new contract, and the Bengals are drawing a line in the sand here and saying, no, you cannot have a new contract. So he wants to get traded, or he wants to get extended, and there's every reason to believe he's going to get traded, which is kind of wild, but the Bengals did just give a bunch of money to Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So the thought of handing out another massive contract right now is probably, it's probably a little bit daunting for them. And we already know that they're haggling over silly little details in the Shamar Stewart contract, and that's not even a big contract, right? That's just a rookie contract. Of course, they're going to be a pain over something like this, but Trey Hendrickson, let's talk about him for a little bit here. He's 30. He's not going to turn 31 until pretty late in the season, so he's on the wrong side of 30, not critically so. And you take a look at his career so far, he's been absolute money over the last 5 seasons, pretty much. He's been great for the Bengals. He had a nice season for the Saints before he went to the Bengals. 3 years before then, he didn't do that much, but he has been one of the best sack artists in football over the last 5 years, I would say. The last 2 years in particular, 17.5 sacks, 17.5 sacks, so 35 sacks total, more sacks than games played. So he has been putting up the numbers. 4 straight Pro Bowls, made All-Pro first team last year, second place in Defensive Player of the Year last year. So Trey Hendrickson, the numbers are there. The guy gets to the quarterback. The guy gets consistent pressure. Last year, 54 pressures, among the league leaders. And remember, he's doing it on a team that has a really bad defense, which some people would say, well, that reflects poorly on him. But also keep in mind, it's not like the Bengals are winning every game by 3 touchdowns, and he just gets to pin his ears back and rush the quarterback with no concern for playing the run. Now, some people would argue he does kind of do that anyway, but this is not somebody who gets to just farm easy sacks against teams that are forced to be one-dimensional. Go to PFF, 88.1 overall grade last year, mostly coming from the pass rush grade, obviously. His run defense grade is okay. Obviously, it's not really a strength of his. And I think there is some merit to the suggestion that he is mostly just a pass rusher, relatively one-dimensional, but that could be okay. The concern, although maybe this isn't even really a concern with Trey Hendrickson, is does he fit our defense? Because with Mike McDonald, we're running a defense where our edge rushers are going to be asked to do more than just rush the passer. We do want them to be good against the run, but they're also effectively serving as the outside linebackers because we're running, I know it doesn't always look like a 3-4 defense, but in terms of how we ask our outside linebackers or edge rushers or whatever you want to call them to act, it's very outside linebacker-ish. It is, they're going to have to do stuff that not necessarily every edge rusher in football is going to do. So does he fit in? He's a little bit bigger than you might like, 270 pounds, and he has spent, to my knowledge, I looked this up the best I could, every year of his career in a team that ran a 4-3. So I don't think he's ever been a guy who plays standing up. I think he's always been a guy with his hand in the dirt. The thing to note is that might be a reason to acquire him. I think that players who play the edge, like Trey Hendrickson, like to move to a stand-up role as they get older because it's less stress and wear and tear on their bodies. Now, can he do it? That's a little bit less clear here. I suspect that he can, but that's something that is going to have to be determined by this team if they're actually thinking about making some kind of a move here. So go to Pro Football Focus. You look at the position data for him. You look at where he lines up. You can see that he lines up often in the REO role, which is basically outside the tackle. And he also gets a lot of snaps as a right outside linebacker. Now, this is PFF operates on the semantics of where the player is lined up, not necessarily the role they play. But you can see that it's 400 snaps as an outside edge, and then it's about 400 snaps as an outside linebacker. So if you ascribe meaning to that, if you want to take something away from that beyond just the semantics of it, then he's got equal experience doing both in that Bengals defense. And if you want to think about his coverage ability, if you want to think about his ability to drop back into coverage, because that's the concern with these guys, right? Like, you take a 4-3 defensive end and you put him into a 3-4, you ask yourself, can he handle the zone drops? Can he drop into coverage? Because that's what the outside linebackers need to do. And if you take a look, last year, 823 snaps, 36 of them were dropping into coverage. So you're looking at right about 2 a game. It's right around 2. It's not a lot, but just for the sake of comparison, if you go to Boye Mafe, now he had a good amount more. Boye Mafe dropped into coverage 61 times last year. He had one game where he dropped into coverage 10 times, had a couple others where he dropped into coverage 8 times. So he definitely did it more than Trey Hendrickson. But you look at a guy like a Derek Hall, not really more, right? You're talking about 36. That's about 2 a game, slightly more than 2 a game. Uchenna Nwosu, Uchenna Nwosu, when he got back from the injury, you can see that he was dropping into coverage 4 to 6 times a game on average, 17 times across the last 4 games. That's a little bit more, but it's really not that much more. So it's not like you're going to be asking, you're not going to trade for Trey Hendrickson and say, hey, we need you to drop into coverage 20 times a game. That would be a waste of his skills, and other edge rushers in this league that play outside linebacker don't do that. They do it a few times a game. He's already kind of doing that if you take a look at this, right? We're talking about 4 times a game in some instances. We're talking about 3 times a game in 5 in one particular game against the Steelers. So it's not like he's completely incapable of doing it. It's not a strength. He's probably not going to be as good at it as somebody like a TJ Watt, but seems like he can handle it, near as I can tell. So that is kind of the question you have to ask yourself here. And you put that all together, right? You're thinking about the age, right? You're thinking about the fact that he's 30. You're thinking about the money. He's going to have to get paid a lot of money, right? Edge rushers get paid the big bucks. Now, I don't think Trey Hendrickson is going to set the market, but I could see him coming relatively close. Like, it's going to be at least $30 million a year, right? This guy has been among the league leaders in sacks for several years in a row. So you're talking about, I don't think it's going to be 40. I don't think he's going to get up there the way that guys like Micah Parsons got up there. But he's going to be somewhere up there, especially coming off an all-pro first-team season. It could get up to 35 very easily. He might want $35 million a year. And then you have to ask yourself about the compensation. What are you going to have to give up? I don't think you're going to have to give up a first-round pick. This guy's got 1 year left on his contract, and you're going to have to pay him. So I don't think the Bengals can ask for like a first-round pick, but you might be looking at like second-round pick, plus you're going to give up one of your edge rushers, right? You're going to give up maybe Boye Mafe, maybe Derek Hall, maybe you can get lucky and it's just Uchenna. But you're going to have to give up one of those guys because you're going to have to make room for your new player. And the Bengals are going to want something that at least gives them a chance to recoup some of the value immediately, because if they trade for a second-round pick, they don't know where that second-round pick is going to be. It could end up being a very low second-round pick, and then they're like, well, we gave up one of the best defensive players in the league for not a heck of a lot. We need that player, that immediate return on the value to be of note. So if it's Boye Mafe, then I think that stings a little bit, because I think Mafe could end up being a very, very good player for the next 7-8 years of his career. Derek Hall, I'm a little more bearish on at this point, so that would definitely be interesting. And Nwosu would be like the big home run, because if you're throwing Nwosu into the trade, that's almost like you're just kind of doing a salary dump of a player that probably still has good years left. He's not that old, but there's also some real concern about his ability to stay on the field. Maybe you have to do some more throw-ins on top of that. Maybe you have to throw in like a 6th-round pick. I don't know. I don't think it would be all that radically different from that. I think that would be about the trade. If I had to guess, 2nd-round pick and one of your edge rushers. One of the 3. That would be my read. And it's tough, right? It's tough to figure out whether or not this is a good move to make. Now, I think that in a vacuum, you do it. This guy should have a few good years left. You trade for him. You give him the big contract. You should be getting good miles out of him during the duration of the rest of that contract. I mean, he's coming off probably the best year of his career, right? And edge rushers can be effective pretty late into their career. Now, here's what gives me pause here. And situationally, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. And this is where things get really complicated for me, because this is an all-in move. This is an all-in move to take your team that has some really good elements to them. There are some really good things going on with this football team right now, and saying, we are going to give up future assets to make ourselves as good as possible right now and go try to win the Super Bowl or make a deep run, however you want to quantify it. So if you do that, what you're saying is you think this team is a Trey Hendrickson away from winning, or at least getting very close to a Super Bowl. And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Are we a Trey Hendrickson away? For one, our pass rush last year with the players that we had was actually quite good, especially coming from the edge position. So Trey Hendrickson makes it better, but how much better are we talking here? I mean, you can only go up so much when you're already starting from a pretty strong position. And last year, I know we didn't have any stud rushers like a Hendrickson, but the body of work of our edge room last year was actually very good. And we added DeMarcus Lawrence in place of Draymond Jones. So I think that there's an argument to be made that you wouldn't feel the improvement, but there would definitely be an improvement. And if you could work it out to where you've got Trey Hendrickson, Mafe, Hall, and Lawrence as your edge rotation, in conjunction with everything else going on this defense, that might be the best defense in the league. It really might be. Like, at that point, you've really got nothing to criticize. There's nothing to be upset about. Everything is pretty much ready to go. Maybe nose tackle, but again, there's been some discussion about that too. There's been some debate about whether or not that is a concern. Maybe Jaron Reed has us locked down. So here's what I'm going to say. This team gave a non-trivial contract to Sam Darnold. This team gave Sam Darnold $100 million. I know he's not going to see all of it, but they gave him a significant contract. And while I think more cynical people out there could say that, well, they didn't give him that much money compared to other top quarterbacks in this league, you still gave him a good amount of money and you gave him the starting job. You, as a team, think at least that highly of him, right? You liked him enough to say, we're going to move off our current quarterback and go to this quarterback. So you should be willing to then say, we're going to go for it with this guy. If you like him enough to give him a 3-year, $100 million deal, then I think that it's just kind of fair to then say that you must like him enough to go trade for a stud edge rusher like this so you can try to win the Super Bowl with him. But me being me, and me having my own takes on the situation, I look at Sam Darnold and I go, I think he's okay. I don't know if he's the guy that can get us to where we want to get to, especially in this situation. And I would sure hate to give up future assets to build the best or one of the best defenses in the league and then not be able to capitalize on it because the offense just isn't good enough. So that's kind of my holdup here. I would sure hate to make this trade, have the best defense in football, and still only win like 10 games or 11 games even, and go one and done because the offense just isn't there. And with this offense having so many new pieces, that's a very realistic possibility. All right, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. There will be a second part to this video later today where I discuss a few more things.